maintenance, backup, and keeping up with the growing security concern. Now, imagine having a file storage system that seamlessly scales with your growing cloud based applications, ensuring optimal performance and reliability, where backups are enabled by default and the data at rest is encrypted from the moment it lands into the storage. So guys, welcome you to this video in which I'm going to talk about something very interesting and important, that is Amazon EFS or Elastic File System, which is the answer of all the things which you just discussed and which you need in a shared file storage system. In this video, I'm going to begin with what Amazon EFS is, what are its different components, and then I'll walk you through the architecture of a use case which we have picked up to build during our demo. Alright guys, it's time to jump right in. And do not forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update from our channel. So without further ado, let's dive into the incredible world of Amazon Elastic File System. So what Amazon Elastic File System is, it's a serverless, fully elastic file storage where you can share file data without pre-provisioning or managing storage capacity and performance. It is built for 11 nines durability and 99.9% of availability. Now where are you going to use it? It can be used as a common data source for workloads and applications which are running on multiple instances where you need multiple simultaneous connections to a storage, whether they're coming from your EC2 instance, from your ECS, or from Lambda, for example, or if they're coming from on-prem as well. As I said previously, there is no need to provision. It will grow and shrink automatically as per the data in it. It's a regional service as some other services of AWS. What does it mean? It keeps and store the data within and across multiple availability zones. Your EC2 instances can access that data or those file systems across availability zone, across regions, and across VPCs as well. You can mount your file system, this EFS file system, on your Linux on-premises server as well if you have AWS Direct Connect or AWS VPN connectivity to your on-prem server location. NFS version 4 is the protocol, so NFS version 4.1 and 4.0 both are supported as of now. And very important thing, as of now you still cannot use it with Windows based instances. You need to make sure that it is working, or you need to attach it to a Linux based instances. It can also replicate to a different region altogether. The only caveat is that when it gets replicated to a different region, the copy of the data or the file system would be read only. You won't be in a position to write back to it. So if you have a use case where you want to share certain data, let's say you have a web page which you want different servers which are spread across different regions want to access that static web page and they're not writing it back to it, EFS is something which would be a very optimal use case for that scenario. Now let's talk about its components, right? So the first component is AWS EFS file system itself, which you create at the as a very first step. Then you need to create something called mount targets, and these mount targets are getting attached to your EC2 instances or your Linux servers on your on-prem. Then the next component comes the replication part of it, where EFS can replicate to a different region altogether, although it would be a read-only copy. And the next component, it's how do you connect to EFS after all these parts in place in your AWS management console. So these are the components which work together to give you a scalable elastic file storage system based on NFS version 4 protocol. And there's a very important thing I would like to call out here. If you look at it, my EC2 instance and mount target are behind two different security groups. So we need to make sure that the security group, which is basically protecting your mount target or your EFS file system mount target, should allow NFS on port 2049 for the traffic coming from your servers or coming through your EC2 instance or that security group. So that is a very important point which you need to remember before you start mounting these mount points on your EC2 instances, that this port is allowing the inbound connectivity to your mount target. Now let's move towards the architecture which we have created and which we're going to build during our demo today. So we will have EC2 instances in region 1 across two different availability zone, and then we'll have another EC2 instance that would be in a different region and in a single availability zone. We will create an Amazon EFS file system in region 1 and we'll mount the targets to these two instances, and then we'll also configure inter-region replication between region 1 and region 2, and then we will mount that mount target to that Amazon EC2 instance to make sure that all three instances which are across availability zone as well as across the region are able to access this same shared storage. So let's jump into the management console and start building things. So guys, we have logged into our AWS management console. Here you can find the service EFS, or you can go to the services and find it under storage. Click on EFS. So first of all, we're going to create our file system and then we'll configure our EC2 instances and mount the targets over there. So you can click on create file system here, give it a name, which is basically option, but this is good to start with the name here. Let's say it's EFS demo 02. Here you can select your VPC where you want your EC2 instances to connect to your file system. The drop down will show all the VPCs available in that specific region in which you're creating your file system. After that, you can click on create and it will create a file system along with the default options. What are the default options? That which will enable automatic backups, and it will have certain lifecycle management policies. It will also set up the elastic throughput. But if you want to customize that options, then you can click on customize here. So click on customize. So we're going to take a route of customization here. Click on customize so that we can understand all the features and the configuration details. So first of all, it will ask you to pick your storage class. Now EFS supports standard as well as one zone. Your standard storage class will keep your data across multiple availability zone, while your one zone will store your data in a single availability zone, but it will have its multiple copies across single availability zone. Your automatic backups are enabled by default. AWS backup is being used in the backend. Then you can pick the lifecycle management policies where EFS intelligent tiering will use this lifecycle management to basically move your data which is not very frequently accessed from standard to standard infrequent access class. If you have seen our S3 video, there's where we have discussed in details regarding infrequent access, standard storage, and all those things. So the same concepts are applicable here as well. So if a file is not accessed for last 30 days, then the life cycle management through EFS intelligent tiering will move that file from EFS standard storage to EFS standard infrequently accessed. And similarly, if you want to bring it back to the standard tier, then you can select here on first access. Once after non-activity, you first access the file, it will come back to the standard storage again, but we'll continue with none. And here you can pick your days after 1 day, 7 day, 14, 60. It can go up to 90 days, where you can see when you want to categorize it as a kind of a infrequent access or last activity on the file. Now, as I said, encryption is enabled by default with the default AWS KMS service key, AWS slash Elastic File Systems. If you want to use your own KMS key, you can provide the KMS key ID or ARN instead of the default one. Here, or if you do not have an existing key, you can always create a new key as well. Now, moving further, now here you have a chance to configure your performance settings. First, it is asking you to configure throughput mode, which is basically either we have two options, enhanced and bursting, and under enhanced we have elastic, which is a recommended setting, or scaling part of it. If you go for a bursting mode, bursting mode will not have two additional options available. Here we'll go with the enhanced option, and if you look at it here, if you opt for elastic, you will not get a chance to set up a number of throughput. If you have a specific workload where you understand the throughput requirement, you can click on provision and you can put your requirement here. Let's say I want to put 250 mbps as a my throughput requirement. Look at the maximum read throughput, it becomes 3 times of your provisioned throughput, and here you can also find out how much is gonna cost to you, right? So this is something, it's kind of a live billing indicator or the estimation which it gives you. And if you go for additional settings, because I have selected provisioned here, it will all, you can select the performance mode, whether you want GP or general purpose, which is the recommended mode, or you can opt for a maximum IOPS kind of a mode as well. Now if I'm gonna select elastic, it will not let me pick max IO. The only recommended option would be the general purpose, so we need to be aware of it. Another thing, you need to be very careful while selecting your performance mode, because this is something which you cannot change later. Throughput mode you can change, but the performance mode you cannot change. So as like other AWS services, here you can provide a tag, click on next. Now it will ask you to configure your VPC access. You can pick your virtual private cloud from this drop down. Currently we have only one, so we're going to pick the default one, and then you decide on which subnet you want these mount targets to be available. If you don't want it spread across 3 availability zone, you can remove one of them, but I'm going to pick all of them together. If you, these are my subnet IDs, this is the IP address which will be picked up automatically from these subnets, and this is the security group which we are currently going with. So you can see this is the default, and I'll come back to the security group later. Currently we are opting for a security group which is default security group and ending in 455. Just keep this thing in your mind and click on next. Now here you can provide your file system policy, which are optional. If you want to prevent root access by default, if you want to enforce read-only access by default, if you want to prevent anonymous access, all these things you can pick here, and accordingly it will generate a policy for you. Let's say I want to prevent anonymous access, so this will generate the policy, and this policy would be applicable when my EFS gets launched. So I don't want to do this. I just want to show you this option available. Click on next. Now it will ask you to review all those configuration choices which you made earlier, and if you are okay, click on create file system. It will take some time to create the file system. Go there, the mount targets will take some time before they actually would be available. If I just click straight away go to the network, and you see it is creating the mount targets, right? So here you can see in the, let's go back once more. Here this is my demo 2 EFS file system which we created. Here you can see all the configured options. It's a general purpose and performance mode, whatever we selected earlier. This is the DNS name, and this is my option that it shows automatic backups enabled, file system state is available. Now here it is the metered size. As I said, there is no need of pre-provisioning. If you realized, I did not put a size to my file storage system. It started with the minimum possible 6 KB. You can see in the dashboard here. Started with that. The amount of data will keep on increasing the moment we keep on increasing files to it, right? Here you can monitor all the requests. These are the CloudWatch matrix we will find here, and it will give you kind of a dashboard look where you can keep on monitoring your throughput utilization, your IOPS, your throughput by type, storage bytes, how many client connections together, what is the percent IO limit which is still available. So all these things you can monitor from this dashboard, right? Then you can see your tags. As I said, we put a tag of department and name, and it took one from the elastic file system and default backup, which is enabled for the backup part of it. Then the file system policy, there's none which you put. Access point, we'll talk about it later. Then the network part of it, let's see whether mount targets are available or not. You see the mount targets are available, right? Also, there's one thing, the replication part. As I said, EFS supports inter-region replication, and this is where you set it up. Currently, if you look at it, I have set this EFS in Singapore region. I want to create a replication towards Mumbai region. So I'm going to click create replication. I need to pick my destination region here. This is going to be Asia Pacific Mumbai. So let's see where it is. Here you pick the region. Now you can decide whether your destination file system going to have a same standard storage class or a one zone storage class. Because we picked up standard storage class in our source file system, in destination let's pick one zone file system settings, and here you can pick your availability zone in which you want this file system to get replicated at the destination. So I'm going to pick 1A. It is encrypted by default, and if you want that at the destination you want to have a different encryption key for this, you can create another one and add that as well. So let's create the replication. Now we have created the file system and we have created the replication as well. In the backend, replication will start and will be available in some time. Now, as I said, this replicated copy would be read only. As you can see, destination file system is read only while my source file system is writable, right? And its initial sync is in progress. Now let's start configuring our EC2 instances based on the architecture which we selected. Let's click on EC2. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna create two EC2 instances in two different availability zones in one region, and one EC2 instance in the different availability zone in a separate region. So currently there is no instances running. I'm going to launch an instance. I'm going to quickly keep it under free tier. So we're going to use T2 micro for this purpose. I'm going to quickly put a server, let's say web server sing01. I'm gonna use Amazon Linux 2023 MI. This is free tier eligible. T2 micro I'm gonna keep. I'm gonna pick my security key. Network settings, I'm gonna, you see, I can pick my VPC. I can pick my subnet here. So let's say this, I'm gonna pick availability zone 1A first, and then security group. Let's say I'm gonna call it EFS server security group 01, and I'm gonna keep the same. Guys, you can skip that part if you know how to get an EC2 instance. I'm just, for the sake of everyone, I'm doing this exercise again. Already we have a video on this, but still I want to make sure do it together. And there's one more important thing which I'm going to tell you, how you can mount EFS while launching your EC2 instances. We're going to talk about it here as well. So I'm going to do SSH. I'm going to add rule for, because I'm going to create it a HTTP server. So HTTP, again, for timing I'm keeping it anywhere, but you understand that this is not a very safe option. So please make sure that you pick these things very carefully. I'm going to just delete this instance so I can live with this one. Let's say HTTPS. Again, I'm using anywhere. Now if you go advanced network configuration, this, if you want add more network interfaces, you can add from there. Let's look into the storage part of it. You can go in advanced. If you look at it, you can add your EBS volumes if you want. Plus here you'll see there is an option called file systems. If you click on show details here, you would be able to add EFS or FSX for this EC2 instance which you're launching. Currently it shows there is no file system on this instance. To add a file system, you can add shared file system. We have picked EFS because currently we're talking about EFS, and it starts showing the file system ID for us, and it will give you the mount point. So if you continue with this, it will mount this EFS as /mount/EFS/FS1. So that way you can start with. Okay, this is one way to add your EFS on the launch time of your EC2 instance. Now if you go there in the advanced details, you see what changes it is making to your user data part. You can see that. So basically it put a user data a script which will be run once you click on launch instance here. So once your instance is ready, your EFS will be ready for that, connected with that EFS instance. So what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna remove it from here. Okay, and I'll show you the another way of mounting the EFS. As you understand, we are gonna create EFS. I'm going to create this as a kind of a, what do you call, web server. So we will run our little bash script here, which we're gonna install HTML, and it will make it a Apache web server. So yum, I'm not updating it, although it's a very good practice to do that. Although I can also put that command to install Amazon EFS utils, but I'm gonna show you once I log into the instance. So with this, we're gonna start the instance. Now our instance is running, so let's connect to this. I'm gonna use the system manager here, click on connect. So let's quickly check what we did. Did it work or not? I'm gonna check whether we created those directory structure or not for my web server. Looks like it is done. Yes, currently there is no file in it, right? Okay, now let's go back to our console, and before we do that, we need to install EFS utils, that is Amazon EFS utils. So I'm going to do that. On this server, which will help me to mount it. So see, it's installed. Let me clear the screen quickly. Now let's go back to the EFS console and pick those commands to attach that mount targets, right? So let's go to the EFS, and this is my EFS terminal 2. Click on, if you look at it, we have an option called attach. You can attach or you can mount via DNS or via IP address. So I'm going to use this EFS mount helper because I have already installed EFS utils. So I'm going to copy this command, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this command till this portion, because I'm going to make it or use it as a HTML directory for my web server. So I want it to mount as an HTML directory on all the web servers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this from here. I'll go to my instance. I'll go one step back here, sorry, and I will mount the command. I'll mount this target. Right. So after that, I'll give the whole path. And if everything remains correct, it will get connected. But guys, we have missed one thing here. If you remember, we spoke about the security groups, and we need to allow that portion, allow that traffic from EC2 in this EC2 instance to reach to my NFS. So we're gonna wait here. We will go back there, and if just close it here, and if you look at it, this was the security group, right, which has got 455 in the back end. And if I go back to my EC2, this is my web server 1, right? We need to pick the name of our security group, which is protecting my this EC2 instance. And if you look at it here, this is my security group, EFS server SC01. Now I'll go to the security groups, and if I'll find the one which was there for EFS, and if it was the default one, if you look at it here, I'm gonna name it this as well. I'm gonna change the name. This is, I'm gonna call it, let's say, EFS file system security, so that we can recognize it. Now this was the one which is basically protecting my uh, EFS file system. I'm gonna select it. I'll just put it there. Go to inbound rules. Currently it is all traffic. I'm gonna add it inbound rules, and I'm gonna add a rule here. I'm gonna add a rule for NFS here, and it is 2049 the port number. And I'm going to allow this traffic from the security group, which basically covering my this one, which is the server security group, which is covering my EC2 instance, right? So go and check rules, come back here and run the command, hit enter, and if everything goes well, it will start showing. So it got connected here. Now, as I said, I'm gonna make it a web server. So I'll quickly create a small simple web page. I'll move to HTML and use your preferred text editor. I'm gonna use Nano. I'm gonna quickly create a HTML page where I'll save this thing, and now hopefully we have a functioning web page. Now we're gonna make use of the same. If I go and do an ls, it has got one index.html file in it. Now I'm going to create two more instances across, one across the region, one across this availability zone, and then see whether this file is being shared there or not. Now guys, I'm creating another instance that is in another availability zone. So I just want you to pay attention here that we can also use these user data, which is under advanced settings, put all these script together, which will install Apache server, which will install the Amazon EFS utils, as well as we can mount those mount targets while launch the instance. There's another way you can use the same script to launch your instances. So click on launch instance. Let's see what happens. So it's say success. Let's go back. Now both are instances across Singapore region in two different availability zones. They are available. So let's quickly check whether they got that file shared. It's my web server 2. If I just go and open the address here, so this is basically okay. This is gonna work if I just put, because HTTPS is not there, so I'll just remove that S from here, and looks like it's working. And if I just go and connect to it, you'll see that file shared over there. And if I just, you can see we have this file. If I just open it with the use there. Now let's see, this is within a single region and multiple availability zone. It says, so guys, we have created our server at Mumbai region as well. So this server is up and running. Now we'll see how we can connect EFS file system, which got replicated through replication. But before that, as I said, let's go to the EFS file system. We need to see what is the status of it. This is my replicated copy, which is read only again, and it says enabled. Now we need to find out its the file system status and in Asia Pacific Mumbai. So if you click on there, you will see when it gets replicated. Let's go to the network. There will be no mount target already created for us. It was a destination was one zone EFS storage. So here we need to create a mount target and pick our subnet accordingly. So create a mount target. This is basically your VPC, which is again a default one. Click your add mount target. So this was your availability zone where we replicated it. Subnet ID is gonna this one, which is you can get from your drop down. IP address would be automatically assigned from this subnet ID, and here you can choose your security groups, which was earlier came by default when we were creating in a different region. So pick your security group. Now I have already created this security group EFS file system Mumbai just to save some of the time. I'm gonna pick that security group. This security group also already have those rules enabled. I'm gonna show you soon. Click on save. So it's gonna take some time to create that mount target. So it says already submitted. Now I want to showcase quickly that security group, what changes I have made to it. So this is my security group. This is server security group, and this is the file system security group which we have. So I'm gonna pick this one, right? And if you look at the inbound rule here, in the inbound rule, I have enabled NFS. Just click on and edit, then you can see properly. So I have enabled NFS from this security group, which is basically a security group where my EC2 instance is. So this is what I have already kept ready for you. So click on cancel, and let's go there if it is already done. So if I go to this, it's still creating. So let's wait for a moment. Now you can see this mount target is available at this availability zone. Let's go and mount it to our server. So this is my server. Let's connect to it. HTML was successfully installed or not. It's there. If I click on ls, there's nothing because this is the EFS still not mounted on this. So I'm gonna go one step back. I'm gonna mount it here. The command would remain same, and before that let's install that EFS utils. So I'm gonna use the command. So this is going to install EFS utils. After that we can, now let's go back to this file system. Click on attach here. This is one which is on AP South 1A. I'm going to click on attach. This will having a different file system ID. You can see that. I'm going to pick this ID from here till this point, and I'm going to copy it and paste it here. No, not this one. It's already have index.html. I think this is the one. Yeah. So this is the one. So I'm going to clear it. So many windows are open. Paste it here, and remove these extra characters. I'm gonna give the path where I want this to be mounted. Here we go. So this is where we are mounting this as an HTML, and it's done. So let's go back to our HTML directory and see whether we have that index.html. As you see, we have this index.html. So this is the guy how this Amazon EFS works. Now let's go back and reiterate, or before that let's check whether this is working or not. Let's go back. The web server should come up now because we have the shared web page. I'm gonna copy this IP from here. It might not come up initially, but you understand that I need to remove that S from here and click here. So see, now we have the same web page being served from 3 different servers across region as well as across availability zone as well. So this was the demonstration, guys. Now let's go back and see what are the certain important points which you need to remember. So we are back to our presentation. You can see this was the architecture which we just created successfully in our management console. Now let's see what are the points which we need to remember. First of all, it's a serverless, scalable, elastic shared file storage system, can have support up to thousands and more than 1,000 concurrent connections, which can come from your EC2, your ECS, your Lambda, or your Linux servers at your on-prem if you have a direct connector VPN connectivity. It supports multi-AZ as well as inter-region replication. It will have automatic backups enabled by default, can be accessed by on-prem Linux servers as of now. This is a bit of thing which we need to remember. It supports different storage classes as we saw in the demonstration, and also the lifecycle management which happens through intelligent tiering. So that's it, guys. That was for this video. Thanks for watching it.